We'll just come and stand in the center of our mat. And we'll just feel into a little gentle loosening here as we start. And have our feet around about hip width apart. So, welcome those of you just joining. So, with our feet around about hip width apart, that gives us a little bit of space for a sway of the hips from side to side. So, we can start to lean our weight from one side to the other of the body here. You can release our arms down and just starting to feel into that contact that we have with the floor, with the ground, with the earth, even though it may be indirectly our contact with the earth, but that's the direction that our weight is moving towards. So there's a little sort of sensitivity that we tune into of gravity here as we begin our practice. And then as we feel into this and we tone the belly and we start to lift the chest and we just let ourselves really gather our awareness into that contact that we have with our feet, we can start to feel a little bit more rather than just simply shifting our weight from one foot to the other. We're going to feel a more deliberate push from each foot to push our weight to the other side. So let's just tune into that deliberate push. So as we do that, we're going to feel into a little bit more engagement there through the quadriceps, through the front thighs. And this is going to help stabilize us as we then eventually come back to pause in the center. Now let's take some slower, deeper breaths here. Let's allow shoulders to descend from the ears, the neck to softly rise up, forehead to soften, the jaw to release. And we'll raise our arms above our head so we can feel into little extension through the sides of the body. Now, this extension is not just through the sides of the body here, from the hips up through the side ribs and waist, where of course we can feel that, but we're going to see if we can again feel it all the way through each side of the body, through the sides of the legs, all the way up to the arms. So again, let's play with that, shifting our weight from side to side, but again, we'll feel a more deliberate push of the weight through each foot. So we feel like we feed the lean to each side. And each time we feed the lean to each side, we're feeding into the extension through the side that we're pressing into. Now, let your head and neck move if you need to. If it starts to feel tight, you can even let the arms move a little. So sometimes this can lead us to feeling a little gripped around the base of the neck. So we modify as we need to so there's no gripping. Wonderful. And then we'll just simply come back to the center here. We'll slowly release our arms down in a wide circle and just let them hang. Let the breath flow and feel that release. Feel that pull back with gravity, the draw down towards the earth. We can feel into our own kind of little dialogue that we create with gravity in our yoga practice, which enables us to lift up against that. But we do it in a way that's sensitive, so as we rise up through the body, there's a lightness. It feels effortless. Okay, let's take our strap, our belt, and hopefully you've all got a long enough belt that you are able to raise one arm up. So you can start by raising your right arm up and take your left arm down. So I'm going to give myself length on my belt like this, I'm letting the belt just come behind my shoulder there. So we want to have a little pull on the belt here. Okay. Now we can do this. We can bring the feet in towards each other a little closer. Maybe they might touch, or maybe you might have a little bit of space between the feet, but you can feel into what feels comfortable for you there. And then let's lift and extend through the body, tone the belly, lift into the chest, and let's feel that pull on the belt. Now, we don't have to really go for this as it's early in our practice, but we can start to feel into it. It's almost like, just an exaggeration, like there's a little pulsation that we're sort of taking a little bit of the tautness out of the belt, letting it have a little bit of slack, and then pulling on the belt, but it's less obvious than that. So we can feel into little gentle reaching in, softening off, reaching in and softening off. And let the breath be at the center of the experience, as it always is. Can't really be yoga without breath there as a central part of the experience. And it's worth doing because it's transformative when we allow the breath to be there. This is probably the single most engaging element of our yoga practice, or the most consistent, I should say. We have different moments of engagement through our yoga, but the breath is probably the most consistent element that draws us into awareness. So maintain that intimacy with your breath. Okay, now we're going to release, and we can just release our arms down for a moment so we can just allow ourselves to feel into that release through the right arm in particular. You might need to give the fingers a little flutter if you felt that it was tight gripping the belt. It can be if you've got a particularly thick belt. And then when you're ready, we're going to switch over. So we're going to raise up the other arm. And again, we're going to feel into this pull between the arms. So we can feel into this extension through the left side of the body here, but we can ease it off, reach into it, ease it off, reach into it. And it's supported again by the breath, because that's the thing that will make this a yoga practice rather than just simply a sort of body movement practice or body conditioning practice. To integrate, it requires our whole being to be offered into this. So this is how we start that offering. The body and then the breath, the heart, the mind, our energy. And within all of that, all of these things are offered within consciousness. Okay. So once again, we're going to release that. So we'll keep this same width of the belt that we have, that is that sort of span of the length of our two arms. And this is probably going to be about the right length, but for some of you, if you're very flexible in the shoulders, you might need to shorten it. We're going to just pull the belt back behind us. I'll turn to the side so you can see, just far enough to get that strong engagement between the shoulder blades into the rhomboids, into the upper trapezius. We can choose to pause there. You might be flexible enough to be able to do that, but we're going to just pause at that point where we get that engagement. But if you find that your shoulders, your arms want to draw back further, shorten your belt. So let's breathe into that. So we're getting this relatively strong engagement in the rhomboid muscles here and in the trapezius of the upper back. So we can breathe into it. What we can feel here, although it feels strong, perhaps across the upper back, between the shoulder blades and the shoulders, the neck might feel quite light. So just check that, maybe move your head. Hopefully there's a little lightness there in the neck. Okay, well done. Let's release the arms down. Let's give the fingers a little bit of movement if we need to. Let's have a little shimmy out, a little shake out, a little bounce out. And then let's return ourselves back into Tadasana. So a mountain pose here. So we can raise up through the midline of the body, feeling into this internal rising, like a little drift of smoke rising up through the body. So there's a sense of that rising being soft. And then the arms release down. So our, what we think of as our outer body, although philosophically speaking, we could say that there is no outer body. But on a physical level, we can feel that we let the arms release. We let the skin soften. We let the jaw release. And of course, the breath is positioned at the heart of this experience. So we'll align ourselves to the midline of the body as we often do, from the center of the pelvic floor to the center of the crown of the head. So let's take the belt as we did before. We're just going to briefly position that belt in front of the body like this. So there's a sense of it mirroring that central energetic channel. So we can feel this extension of the belt that we are pulling up at the top end of the belt. We're drawing down. So we're creating a length through the belt, but I want you to feel in, drop your attention into the center of the body and see if you can feel a sense of that central energetic channel extending or sort of lengthening out, becoming free, becoming clear. So our prana, our life force, is able to flow freely. Now we'll swap our arms around just for the sake of the sort of physical balance in the body. And we'll breathe into that. And again, see if you can tune into that being mirrored. And this is a little orientation practice, so we can stay at our center throughout the next few postures that we move through. We can remind ourselves, as we do with the breath, to return to the breath, that we return to the center. Whenever we notice ourselves drifting away from it, and of course we do reach out in the body, but we can reach out from that center point. Okay, well done. Let's bring the arms down. Let's take a deep breath. Let's have a little shake out, a little shimmy out, a little bounce out. Find flow, any movement. Maybe it's the wrists and the fingers that need movement. Maybe you need to move out the ankles now, as we've been standing in pretty much the same position for a while. Let's have a little roll of the shoulders so we can feel, maybe we can feel in that roll, we can tune into the residual sensations from those actions we've been doing. You can feel where we've been engaged through the trapezius muscle of the upper back. And then we'll release. We'll soften the forehead. We'll release the jaw. We're going to take a long length of belt again. So let's start by raising our right arm up, our left arm down as we did before. And then just make sure your belt's out of the way so you're not going to stand on it. And then we're going to take a wide strike. Okay, now keep some tone in your belly, because the pull on the belt, if we're not clear about that tone in the belly, can encourage us to overarch in the lumbar. So I'm going to keep the lumbar supported with that belly toned. Not that you can see belly toned through my onesie here, but we can. I can assure you I'm toning my belly. Okay, now we're going to turn the left toes in and take the heel out. We turn the right foot and leg out, so we have a heel to instep alignment here. We've got a really generous stride, so let's just check that. It's not too narrow along this length of our mat because we're going to bend that front knee. We're going to come down as we would for a Virabhadrasana Eka, number one, warrior one. But we can play back and forth into this. So we're using this back and forth motion to loosen up through the groin area and the inner thigh area. And then we're going to land with the knee above its own ankle. We're going to keep that tone in the belly, that lift in the chest. I'm going to see if we can take a little lean over. It's almost like we've taken our arms into a reverse Pajvakonasana type action. So we're going to create that side angle as we normally do with this. What is your left arm at the moment would be coming above the head, but we're taking the right arm in that direction to create that line. Let's breathe. Now, this is stronger, of course. So, how we meet strong postures is to, kind of have an inner strength to not resist, to not give up, but to meet it with calmness. And of course, when your body becomes fatigued, we can either play with little movements that can help us to remain, or we come out when we need to. Okay, well done. Let's inhale and come up. Well done. That's nice and juicy in the morning. So we'll turn our feet to the front or release our arms. In fact, let's step back together for a moment so we can have a little release here. Again, any little movements you need, wherever it is in the body, and you can really intuit this. So feel into what the body needs. We intuitively know how to bring release to any part of our body. But sometimes we lose touch with that intuition because we override it by the need to be doing things, the need to be getting stuff done. We override the listening to our body. But here in a yoga practice, there is nothing that we need to get done. And I know that might seem like, well, we are doing things here. But actually, we are just purposing these postures, not to do them, but to drop into being within them, to know ourself within them. Okay, so let's switch it up. So it's your left arm lifting. This time your right arm down. And again, we've got that tautness in the belt. We're going to take a good, generous stride on our mat. And again, we're going to keep that tone in the belly, lifting the chest, breath flowing. We're going to turn the right toes in, take the heel out, turn the left foot and leg out. So we've got a heel to instep alignment. And then again, as we lift through this, we can bend that front knee and we can come up and down through that knee a few times. But see if you can feel really steady in that action rather than just sort of bending the knee sort of willy-nilly. We are extending through the thigh. So there's a real clear action here. Of course, any time that you need to ease it off a bit, you can loosen the belt a little. And then we're going to bring that knee above its own ankle and we're going to take a little lean, almost like we are creating this reverse Pajvakonasana. And again, you can play with little movements to be able to hold the posture. Check your head and neck are comfortable. So you're either looking forward, you can look up, you can look down. So you can choose that alignment of your head and neck, but let it be a conscious choice. Breath flowing. Okay, well done. Let's inhale and come up. Fantastic. Let's turn the feet to the front. Let's release our arms. Let's step ourselves back in. Take a breath or two. And again, shake it out, wiggle it out, bounce it out. Feel into the freedom that follows. Yoga is a practice of soteriology, which means a practice, a philosophical system that leads us to freedom. So let's see if we can find that here. And how we find that in yoga asana is through this process of engagement and release, engagement and release. Every time we create an engagement, what follows the engagement is release, and release is moving us towards freedom. And this is the deep freedom of being. It's not the freedom of, that idea that we can do whatever we like. It's the freedom of not being bound by our own mind, our own constructs. And the freedom of being burdenless. Okay, now let's take our bout here. We're going to, hopefully you've got a long enough bout so you can stand on your bout. We can do this with the feet in towards each other, or we can go hip width apart with this. And we're going to hold the bout. So we're going to use the bout in Tadasana. You can bend your knees as you walk your hands down your bout, and then you get that tautness, and then re-extend through the legs, lift through the chest. And what this does, again, is it creates this little drawdown of the shoulders. So we'll stay nice and broad across the collarbones. We'll keep the belly toned, the chest lifted. And with this grip on the belt and this lift up through the midline, so let's orientate ourselves towards that central midline of the body, our central energetic channel, the Sushumna, through which we want to experience freedom. And we'll breathe, we'll lift. There's tone in the belly. Remember, that's important. As soon as we start adding resistance into these postures, that energy that we create through that, it has to go somewhere. And if we have a sort of a point that is unsupported, it can go there. So we keep the support of the lower back with engagement of the belly. We maintain the flow of the breath because it is probably the element of our practice that is most likely to offer us into freedom. Okay, wonderful. Let's ease that off again. We might need a little wiggle through the fingers. Again, a little movement through the body, a little shimmy, a little bounce, a little boogie. We quite like a Thursday morning boogie. Okay, now we're going to do the same again, but we're just going to bring one foot on. I'm turning to the side, and you might need to, because we're going to come into a kind of version of Virabhadrasana number 3, Warrior 3. So we're going to be tipping over like this. So you need that space behind you and a little space in front of you. So we're going to bring one foot onto the belt. Okay, so have the belt across the ball of the foot, the widest part of the foot. So that is just a little easier in terms of stability that we get here. And then we are going to have to walk our hands down the belt as we move into this. So you're going to take the other leg back behind you a little. So just bring the toes to the floor. Now lift up in the chest, tone the belly. Now this is where we want to take it slow. We want to keep a sense of steadiness in the body, ease in the body. And it doesn't matter if you just lift the leg up a little and walk your hands down a little and remain here. But if you can, keep walking your hands down your belt as you lift the leg. Then there'll be a point at which you come towards this parallel position with the floor. Then you can just have a little pull on the belt, keep that tone in the belly. And of course, we are dealing with balance here, so we want a calmness in our breath. Okay, well done. Let's bring yourselves up. You might Have to take a big step back like I did. Take a breath. So notice how the breath is impacted by that focus, that balance. And if you find that you really need to take some deeper breaths, it might be that perhaps your breath wasn't breathing as freely as it could be. Okay, now let's swap over. Let's bring the other foot under the mat. Let's find a little rising up through the body so we can maintain that rising through the body, that length through the spine as we tip ourselves forwards again. So we'll take the other foot back, we'll walk the hands down the belt, we'll raise that leg up, and then we can get to a point where we might be able to just create a little tautness through the belt. We can pull on the belt, you can bend your elbows if you need to, and breathe. Slow, steady breaths. Wonderful. Now let's slowly bring ourselves up if we can. There we go. Calmer for me on that side. And then we'll release and we'll have a little shake out, a little shimmy out, a little bounce out. That's it. Maybe a little jog on the spot. There we go. Okay, fantastic. Let's just pop our belt down for a moment and we'll take our feet a little wider than hip width and we're just going to take a few wide sort of rolls of the shoulders, moving the arms in this so we can feel how we are lifting through the chest, how we are getting that movement there across the upper back and the shoulders, sort of waving the arms around. Again, there might be a little sway between the feet. And then we'll let the arms hang when you're ready. Let the breath soften. Just look at your feet and check that they are aligned with each other down through the midline. And breathe. Now, it might be that you need a little bit of support. We're going to fold ourselves forwards into an Uttanasana type position. So often we do this with the feet hip width apart, but we've got our feet a little wider. So a block can be a nice midway position for us to offer ourselves into. Keep that tone in the belly. Let's fold forwards, hinging from the hip joint so we maintain this length through the front of the torso as we fold. And then we bring our hands down onto our breath. Now we can play back and forth into this. We can breathe into this. We can give to this. Now moving the body, leaning forwards towards the block, pulling back towards the hips, bending the knees. These are all actions that we can take to loosen up through the body. We might be guiding our breath into the back of the thighs or elsewhere. So you feel into the needs of your body here and now. Okay, if you've got quite a lot of turn, you are welcome to fold in a little deeper, to bring your hands to the floor, to come to hold your elbows. And that, if you do come to the position where you hold your elbows or you hold onto your biceps, you can play with a little movement here. You can have a little pressing into the feet, a little sort of wiggle, a little loosening out there through the lower back as you breathe. Bending your knees as much as you need to. And again, finding your breath at the center of this experience. Okay, wonderful. Now, let's release the arms. If you're holding them, let's bend the knees. Let's take our hands to the thighs. Let's Press into the thighs. Come to this midway position, this midway braced position. And we'll just play with a little bit of movement here so we can extend one leg as we bend the other knee deeper and we let ourselves turn into this and we can feel into the stretch through the sides of the body and through the back. And we just give to that in our own time so you can move at your own pace here. Again, that pace is determined by our breath. That pace is determined by us leading us towards freedom. So we can feel whether or not our actions are guiding us towards freedom or they're guiding us towards grasping. Okay, well done. Let's come back to the center. Let's press into the feet. Let's come on up. Again, any movement, any shakeout you need, you can take. We're going to come to face towards the short end of our mat, step up towards the top end of the mat, and we're going to fold ourselves forwards again so we can step back into a downward facing dog. So let's raise our arms up. Let's lift up. Let's have a little shimmy out to get a little more length. Now, tone the belly, lift the chest. You can either fold forwards with your arms extended, or if the lower back feels vulnerable in that, you just tuck your arms in and fold forwards, or if you haven't got much space, you do that. We bring our hands down to the floor so they're shoulder width apart, knees bend as much as they need to make that contact with your hands. And then we're going to step ourselves back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And here we can play into it. We can have a little wiggle from side to side through the hips. We can keep feeding lift and length through the torso by deepening our hands into the floor, breathing into that, giving to that. It's a wonderful opportunity as well to tune into that midline that we've tuned into through our practice. Tune into the midline. Let there be flow there. Let there be peace there. Okay, now let's see if we can just take ourselves forwards into a plank pose briefly. We're going to transition into a head up dog from plank. That's the easier way. Of course, we could, if you're really keen, you're welcome to go into Chaturanga Dandasana and come up, but we'll take the easy option, which is to just simply pull the chest through from here. You might roll over the feet, or you might keep the toes tucked, but the chest pulls through and lifts up. We deepen our hands into the floor. It's just the feet and hands in contact with the floor, not the thighs. But of course, if it's too strong, you can bring your knees down to the floor. We breathe. Okay, now bring the knees down to the floor. Come back onto hands and knees. Take a breath. Have a little slow sway across the hips to help loosen the lower back tissue. We can lower ourselves down onto the forearms and turn the palms up towards the ceiling. And then we can take some deep breaths here. Find the breath, a sense of self within that. That is not the contracted self, but the expansive self. Okay, any movement through the body. Now we're probably feeling that hopefully we're feeling that we've brought some release to the lower back. So we're going to take this back into a child's pose now. So you can take support if you wish. I like to come back, bringing that contact, or it might be towards contact between buttocks and heels, depending on your body, and then bringing my body forwards. And then we take slow, deep breaths here. You take any support you need. So you might need support between buttocks and heels. You might need support underneath your head. Might want to support the whole of your body. You can fold yourself over a bolster if you have one. Okay, wonderful. Let's slowly raise the head up. Let's walk our hands in towards us to bring ourselves up. And then we're going to bring ourselves onto our back here. So let's do that. We come down, feet on the floor. Press your feet into the floor when you get there. Lift up your pelvis and then reach your pelvis down the length of your mat towards your feet and place it back down. It's a kind of lengthening and extension of the lower back rather than a sort of tucking there. Okay, because we're not trying to take out the lumbar curve, that's natural and we want it to be there, but we can bring length to those lower back muscles by repositioning the pelvis. We can then have the feet a little distance between the buttocks and heels, and we'll take our arms out nice and wide, nice and broad, so the elbows are around about sort of shoulder height or a little higher. And then we'll just take a breath here. Just let the body rest here for a moment. Feel into the release through the palms of your hands. Feel into perhaps a softening of the pelvic floor and the belly. Feel into the easeful flow of your breath. And then when you're ready, you may let the knees move from side to side so they can just slowly descend. You can just feel into that movement across buttock flesh, and you might find you want to pause at points if you get into a little that pressure that we feel in the buttocks. It can be quite nice to hold that sometimes if there's any tightness there. So we are feeling into that massaging of the buttocks, but also feeling into the slow, steady extension, the soft extension through the belly, waist, and lower back, all the way up to the armpits. And if you feel that you need to take a little twisting action that feels a little bit more twisty, shall we say, perhaps you feel like the body kind of wants to be sort of wrung out a little more, then you can come back to the center. You can again realign your pelvis. You can draw your knees in towards your chest, and then you can take both knees over together as they are tucked. You can take some support if you need to between the knees, and then we get into a little deeper action. You are welcome to stack the hips in this if that's comfortable, but for some, that might feel like it tweaks in the SI joints, so the two sacroiliac joints either side of the sacrum. So just adjust as you need to. Take support back off if you need to, or stay with that continuous flowing movement of the more open twist. So switch over if you have come into a deeper twist. Make sure you move to both sides of the body. Check in with your breath. Is it still the gatherer that brings our whole experience together? Okay, well done. Let's roll ourselves back into the center. Let's place the feet to the floor. Let's take a deep breath here, realign, and it might be that you feel you want to give the knees a little hug into the chest. You can hold the knees or shins or thighs. Legs can be together or apart, and you can just have a little movement As you wish, a little rock across your back. Maybe if you're holding the legs independently, a little movement through the legs, but just feel into it intuitively. Don't think about it, just let it happen. And then when you're ready from here, you are going to lay yourselves down in the glorious Shavasana. So we can take some support if we need support. So, as always, I'll remind you when we lay down, we're kind of laying down in this position, feet around about hip width apart, arms a little distance from the body, not pinned against the body, or resting the hands on the torso. And a little bit of support under the head if when you lay down, your head tips back, your chin lifts, the throat opens. We want to bring a little bit of support so the throat is soft. It's not stretched in this position. I personally like to have a little bit of support anyway, even though my head doesn't particularly tip back, but I like a little low support under the head. So you lay yourselves down, you place yourselves here. And when we place ourselves here, we can feel that there is both an entry into this practice of Shavasana and a receiving of this practice of Shavasana. And as we enter and receive this practice, the message that we get from this practice is to let go, to give to it, to allow. There can be a deep melting here. So there is no part of our being that pulls away from this. But we feel that everything is given to this, like every moment of our lived life so far has brought us to this moment of release. The breath is at the center. So, as always, some of you may need to get on with your day now. Some of you may have a little bit more time. But I'm going to guide you out, but feel free to remain here if you have the luxury of time and space to do that. You're welcome to. Let's take a deeper breath or two here as we take those breaths, tuning into the release of the exhalation and just slowly bending the knees and placing the feet to the floor, feeling into any intuitive movements of the body here. If you're happy to roll to both sides of your body, you may roll over onto your right side and pause there. And then you may roll over onto your left side or your chosen side if you're rolling to one side. And then when you're ready, just bring yourselves up, maybe with a little movement, a little stretch out, a deeper breath, whatever you need. And we'll close with a single Om together. So sitting in any comfortable seated posture, let's bring our hands to our heart center. And let's take a deep breath in to prepare. Om. Thank you all very much. Namaste, Namo Buddhaya. Reverence to you all. Thank you. Hope you all have a wonderful day and hopefully I'll see you very soon. Lots of love, everyone. Bye.